Hello and welcome to the Joyful Rebels podcast. We've got Claire and Donna Thomas here, your mother daughter duo. And today we're going to talk about growth mindset and how it can help us as we age. So, what is growth mindset? If you've been following the Joyful Rebels for a while, we have talked about this concept before, and I'm actually reading the book on it right now. So, it's been very top of mind. But there's a psychologist named Carol Dweck, and she talks about growth mindset being a belief that our capabilities, our capacity, and our talents can be improved over time.
Mm.
So the other end of the spectrum there is this idea of a fixed mindset, like I am smart or I am not smart, and it being very black or white. Um, a lot of the experiments and research that's been done on this concept has been done with kids. And there's been critiques of this over time, but as we'll hear in a little bit, it's definitely something that can benefit us as we're aging. So, again, growth versus fixed mindset. Do I view a challenge with excitement or do I view a challenge with trepidation because I'm worried about failing? Um, Mom, I want to ask you right off the bat,
Hmm.
what's your personal experience with growth versus fixed mindset? Maybe what you've experienced personally, professionally?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I love that we are revisiting it in that I would have said that I am aware of what this is. I buy into it. I subscribe to it. I do believe that we can change our capacities and neuroplasticity and all of that. I love that you're reading the original work of it because there are critiques and additional application for what it looks like as we're aging. So that's what's different in what we'll talk about today. But for me to rewind the tape, when we bring up topics, then we provide each other with enough time and space to marinate on it. So like what bubbles up, what happens. And what has come up for me is like it clear as a bell. This was not the message. And a growth mindset was not the message that was given to me as a kid. And I hope that as you're listening, that you know that I'm never hating on my parents or where we came from, because I do think everybody does the very best that they can. But my grandparents came over from Greece and didn't know the language, and I can only imagine that if that were me, I would still be on the floor in a fetal position sucking my thumb. So they made it over here, and then they were fearful of many things, and so that was kind of part of the message. And rightly so, probably, because there's just bigger stakes or different stakes. To my mom's credit, and women in the Greek patriarchy, they didn't have a lot of education. So the cool thing is she insisted that her kids went to college, and we all did. So I love it that if as a generation we one of the goals is to do slightly better than what we came from, whether it's breaking generational curses, adding to the well-being and creating better functioning human beings. I think that they advanced the play as best that they could. Then it was on me. So then if my safety needs are taken care of, was like, I don't think that that's it. I think that there is more to it. And so I tend to put myself in situations, or I have been oddly kind of put in them. Like Claire, we were just talking about when I first started working at my corporate job, and this is 25 years ago, didn't know how to send an attachment on an email. You know, so sometimes you're just put in a position or you take on a task, and that's part of being a growth mindset as well. Like, I'm going to take this on, I'm going to learn as I go. I
Mhm.
trust that I'll figure it out. I trust that I'm going to go into situations that I don't know, because I think if I were to walk into situations where I think I've got it all handled, I'm a jerk and I'm not very cool to be around, but it's false. And that is a very limiting way to go through life. So through this wonderment, I did figure a lot of things out. And I do feel like I'm helping on the continuum of creating and instilling different values in people. So I'm happy to be a part of, even though that wasn't the message I got, that I knew that didn't seem sustainable or relevant for now, which is all our choices based on the dynamic world that we're in now. Do we take the messages that we received and just keep doing that, or do we add to it? So I feel like the growth mindset thing, as I continue to age, I'm coming up on another birthday, and it's very top of mind for me.
Mm.
So I want to revisit it even more and open up a window, and I feel encouraged at this stage of the game to continue and even press into it a little bit more. So I I like that. And I know that there's tips, Claire, that you'll go over, but it's really a decision, a decision, small decisions to be made that just keep you moving. And I'm willing to do that.
I would have to say for me, when you're talking, it's just reminding me of all these topics that we've talked about in Joyful Rebels. Because you said, we pick a topic and then we marinate over it. But we also are, incorporating a lot of the tips into our own life or are talking about what's worked for us. And it has led me to try a lot of new things, right? So part of this growth mindset, again, is maybe you're put in a situation, presented with an idea of how to do something, and it's part of it is, how are you approaching it? Are you, oh, I'm going to fail, oh, this is
Mm,
hard, I don't want to do it? Or maybe you're, oh, I'm willing to try it. And so for me, really, this growth mindset is something that I feel has accelerated or increased since we've been doing this thing together.
mm,
One of the reflections that I did make in this past week is, when I was a kid, I would do really well on tests. I did really well in school, and I was always getting the feedback from teachers. You're so smart. You're so smart. You're so intelligent. And so it's only now, like looking back, I might say that, I internalized that. Oh, I have intelligence. Great, maybe. But then when something was challenging, I almost didn't want to go for it because, ooh, what if I fail?
mm,
No, no, I'm not supposed to fail at. So I think that, and maybe if you're listening, you might notice that too, with some reflection on that, that if we are told and we have this thinking that it's fixed, oh, our intelligence is fixed, we're really smart, that might actually prevent you from wanting to do
mm,
something outside the box because you don't want that feedback that, oh, wait, I didn't excel on the first try.
mhm,
I'm not great at something I'm trying for the first time. That can, whether we're, cognizant of it or not, that can make us feel badly. And so I will say that it's through a lot of the stuff we're doing in the Joyful Rebels where I'm like, no, I am going to try it because it is good for us as we're aging. So one of the you talked about additional applications of what Dweck had talked about with the growth mindset, and one of them is there's a study that came out in 2023 that said that growth mindset can predict cognitive gains in older adults. Okay, what are we talking about here? Well, older adults that had a growth mindset, as in they viewed challenges as a good thing. They wanted to try something new. They were willing to because they knew there were going to be benefits to their brain that actually influenced the quality and the quantity of engagement in activities that stimulate your brain.
mm,
So that makes sense if we break that down. If you're excited and looking forward to doing new things, you are more likely to go out and do these new things that are again creating new neural pathways. We'll talk about that in just a second here. And so as we age, you might know someone or just, it's kind of that in society we think, oh, there's a tendency as you're older, I like what I like and I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. And you kind of just keep going in the same ruts there. You're
mhm,
strengthening the neural pathways that are already there. But what I'm going to say is tip number one for if we want to focus on growth mindset is that neuroplasticity, it works at all ages.
mm,
So, neuroplasticity, we've had a whole episode on this before. It's the ability for our brain to build new neural pathways and to improve older ones. And so, we are making these connections actually inside of our brain. We shared, I think, years ago, that really cool video, the
mm,
petri dish of the neuron actually reaching out until it connected. So, I mean, actually physically making these connections inside of your brain. And the way that we do that is by either direct training or just new experiences.
mm,
So again, that's why I mentioned with this Joyful Rebels, a lot of the times we're throwing out these tips that we know are science backed, but maybe I haven't tried them before. I'm now willing to go out and try some of these things if for the bare minimum it's doing something new, because
mm,
it's really easy. And I remember before we started doing this podcast and when my son was a newborn, I was in a little bubble. I didn't even want to go to the grocery store because I didn't necessarily want to, talk to any strangers. Just my world felt small. I wanted to stay within a comfort zone. And once he got older and I was able to branch out more and started trying new things, my world kind of blew up in a good way. It
mhm,
felt better. My mind felt more sharp. I'm making more connections. Things felt easier socially. And I'm not saying that it's some magic pill or fix for everything. But what I'm saying is, it doesn't matter how old you are. You can decide today, oh, that thing that I've been kind of worried about trying, but I want to do, I'm going to go do that because I know that it will benefit my
mm,
brain now and as the years go on. The last thing I'll say about this, and this really resonates with me and probably you too, mom, but think of it as a workout for your brain.
mm,
Maybe you're someone who's really into fitness already. You know how important movement is. And we talk about movement as one of our 3 M's, one of the main drivers of wellness is that you're moving your body in some way. We got to maybe start incorporating how are we doing a workout for our brain. For me, I'm going to sit down with my kids every night. We're going to do Wordle and connections from the New York Times, right? Start small. Find something you like that's going to be a little bit of a cognitive challenge, and that's where it is. It's incorporating it. This is my daily. I have a fitness routine. I have a brain fitness routine.
Hmm. I love that. As you're speaking, what I'm realizing is that if you came from the perspective or the vantage point of you are really smart and there was something to lose for trying something new, potentially. And then I'm coming from the place I was not told any of that was like I had any certainty in any of those areas. So I was like, I'm fearless with that. I'm like, I'll try that. I don't care about failing. But either way, and somewhere in the middle, you can still benefit regardless of what messages or how you feel about taking risks and learning new things. So I love that we can continue to meet in the middle, whether we're different
Mm,
generations, whether we got different messages. There's hope. There's
yes.
always a way to decide that today's your day to create something that's different, or to add to something that you subscribe to. You're like, I want to keep learning. I want my world to expand. I don't want it to shrink, because I don't want it to shrink down to nothing. I want to just be in wonder, because there's just so many things in the world to learn and to be interested in. That doesn't, and then we're not talking about performance. We're talking about learning and talking about how that feels and how you live your life with that. So those are two separate things. If you're thinking it's about performance, not about that. But I've had another experience that, Claire, you talk about engaging in things that start stimulating your brain and doing that. I feel like I get a chance to do that too, because the tip number two is that I am in the driver's seat, and so are you. Like, we're making choices, right? Like, we know that from tip number one, that neuroplasticity in your brain changes through all ages. And you might want to pay more attention to it as you're aging, which if you woke up this morning and you're breathing, you're getting older, which is awesome. But also that you have control here. And that's where control, I think, sometimes gets a bad name. I don't believe that to be the case here. So for me, when I look at doing, if I'm in the driver's seat, is I'll look at almost like continuing education, like I'm in business. I know we talk about seasons a lot on the podcast, and that can be, for some people, we've gotten feedback that can feel vague. But I trust that if that's language that you like, you understand what that means. Whatever your season is, whether it's small children raising, whether it's working full time, whatever your situation is. Uh, I like to get more specific in this stage of my life, and I'll go by quarters, like actual annual calendar year quarters. And the first quarter, I got into a cohort of women in leadership in a different industry, one that I am not proficient at. So my faith is really important to me. And I got a chance to be with an author of a book that I really like, who's talking about some leadership, hard topics, women in organized religion. Like, come on, that's some stuff that's got some firepower behind it. So yes, I want to be in on that conversation. And I'm not going to lie, at first I'm like, oh, I'm not in this industry. Maybe I'm not qualified. But then I realized I love to learn. I do consider myself a leader, no matter where you are. No, it's not about a name tag. It's not about a role. It's how you interact with people. I do believe that I'm, again, a leader, and I'm also coachable. So I want to learn
Mm,
and hear what they have to say, but I can sit at the table. And I just got done. It was a 6-week cohort, and it was awesome. And it made me want to go deeper. That sometimes if you're coming from an outside industry, that's a fresh perspective. And I felt very comfortable being there, not in a haughty way, but I'm with you, sisters. Like that, I hear you, but this is where it can go. And I have really enjoyed that. So that was my first quarter. I had a 6-week, 2-hour Zoom meeting on Monday nights. It doesn't have to be um, that fleshed out or that like professional to do that. I've got 2 books that I'm reading for this quarter that are not things that I would normally read about. They're recommendations from trusted friends. And Claire, I'm taking my cue from you, which I learned so much from you. But when you're like, I'm just going to read more, I'm like, me too. And it's not someday. Someday is today.
mm.
Someday is this quarter. I have 2 books that are not something that I would choose for pleasure, but they're interesting. One of them is about an endurance athlete, like these scientists and what they learn about being out in the Alaskan tundra. Hey, does that sound fun for anybody? It didn't for me, but I got about 25 pages in. I'm like, holy moly, the human experience is the same no matter where you are. So whether it's a paid, really like, what do you call it, formal
Mm.
way that you're learning, or ways that you can choose, but you're challenging yourself in ways that you know that you can challenge yourself. I'm in the driver's seat. I can make those decisions, but I am going to do a little bit of planning to keep myself in it because I love learning. I don't mind failing. I don't mind not being the smartest one in the room. And matter of fact, I rarely, if ever, am, and I don't care. But I want to stay big, open, learning because I want to be around to be with you guys for as long as I can in a way that is helpful and contributes to myself, my family, and the greater community.
Well, I love to hear about the reading more. I'm going to say that. Um, I didn't even think about that honestly when we were talking about this, but that's such an amazing tip. Like, even if it's just reading some more, and books maybe you necessarily wouldn't, or asking friends for recommendations, that's going to be a bit of a challenge cognitively. Like, that's excellent. 10 minutes a day, get out your habit tracker, check
Yeah.
off 10 minutes a day. Um, and what I also heard you say was choices. We do have choices. You don't necessarily have to go do the most uncomfortable thing that you could think of. It's just about doing something that's different. And so, if you're looking to work on growth mindset, tip number one, remember that it's good to do at any age. And you can work on this even if today is day one. Think of it as training for your brain. And then tip number two, you're in the driver's seat. You have choices. If you're feeling stuck and helpless, let's reframe that. You have potential. Until next time, Rebels.